Hallelujah. Praise you, Most High. Thank you, Sister Linda. Shabbat Shalom, sisters. On today's study, we're going to be covering Jochebed and Miriam. So we're going to be covering Moses' mother as well as his sister. I kind of figured combining them both since, there's a lot of both of them in the same chapter. So praise y'all, and I'm excited for this study and to be doing this study with my sisters, with you all. All right, sisters. So we're going to start off in Exodus chapter 1. And here I figured we can read verses, let me see, 1 through 14. Do I have any volunteers to read the first 14 verses? And if not, I can go ahead and read. Okay. All right, sisters. Okay, so Exodus chapter 1, verses 1 through 14. Now these are the names of the children of Israel, which came into Egypt. Every man in his household came with Jacob: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah; Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls, for Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Israel were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceeding mighty. And the land was filled with them. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply, and it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join also unto our enemies, and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. Therefore they did set over them taskmasters, to afflict them with their burdens. And they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew. And they were grieved because of the children of Israel. And the Egyptians made the children of Israel to serve with rigor. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar, and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field, all their service, and in all manner of service in the field, all their service wherein they made them serve was with rigor. So I think this is very interesting, and it's very beautiful, for a couple of reasons. I mean, we have here, we get kind of like the beginning of what's going to happen with the children of Israel going into Egypt. And one thing that I found really amazing while I was doing this study, especially on these verses, is the word of the Father never changes. It's always the same from the beginning to the end. And the only reason I point this out is because Yahuwah spoke to Abraham, and I wrote down Genesis 15:13 when he spoke to him. And he said to him, he said unto Abram, know of surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in the land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them for 400 years. So this is something that Yahuwah had already spoken to Abraham, that it was going to come to be. And I think like that to me is just reassuring, and it's beautiful, because our Heavenly Father is, he's all knowing, and he never changes, and he's always the same. And so and that to me is amazing. Our Heavenly Father is in control. And And we have here, and to tie that with, let's see, chapter 1, verse 14. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar, and in brick, and all manner of service in the field, and wherein they made them serve was with rigor. So again, here we have like the beginning of what the Egyptians are going to do to the children of Israel, the beginning of that bondage. And so I just wanted to point that out, like our Heavenly Father is in control, and this is something that was already told to Abraham when the Yahuah also told him that he was going to be the father of many nations. So praise Yah. Go ahead, Sister June.
I Shabbat Shalom. I also see what you're saying in verse 12, that same thought, because it says, the more they afflicted them, the more they increased and grew. So it's like, they were trying to decrease their numbers, but Yah is there and giving favor to increase, despite their best efforts to kind of keep them down. And you kind of see that pattern throughout history with our people. There's a lot of oppression, but Yah works despite man's best attempts to keep Yah's children down.
Praise Yah. It's amazing. And that's actually a really good verse that you just pulled out, sister, because it is so true. As much as their efforts of these Egyptians were to bring them down, and they multiplied and in strength, and in numbers. Praise Yah. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything else to point out on these first verses, Sister Linda? Or your hand is up, Sister Linda. Go ahead.
Yes, in line of what you young ladies are saying, it brings to my mind the scripture in Matthew's, it's at 11:11, 28 and 29, because as we know, just like you just finished saying, this seems to have always have been that type of a situation, and but the Father, He made a way for us, and I just pray that we would just be awakened more and more and come into the knowledge of the way that He has made for us, because it is the adversary's objective to keep us oppressed. Matthews 11:28 and 29 states, Yahusha, this is Yahusha speaking. He said, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." And we know how heavy the burden can get at times. Sometimes the burden to do it in life, the struggles of life, the challenges in life can become almost unbearable. But we know that our strength is in Yah. We know that He is a burden bearer. It's such a wonderful, extraordinary thing that irregardless to what we're going through, we can take it to Him in prayer. We can cast our cares upon Him because He cares for us. And look at how He has, just like you ladies said, look at how He has allowed us to thrive and to flourish, irregardless to all the obstacles, all the adverse circumstances that we have had to endure generation after generation. Hey, we're still here, and we're still totally focused on Him, not as many as we would hope, but it's still going on. The Torah is still being guarded, it's being preserved, it's being walked out. His word is on our hearts and in our minds, and it's who we are. All praise be to your name, Father. And so it glorifies Him. It truly brings praise and worship to His name, and causes us to rejoice and hope, We have a hope. We can rejoice in our hope because we've seen over and over what he has done for us. Praise Yah.
Yes, definitely praise the Heavenly Father, praise Yahuwah. Thank you, sister. And I think like along with what you were saying, it's because everything you said was like on point. It was beautiful, and it's what the Father wants from us. You know, He wants our faith. He wants us to keep His commandments. You know, He wants us to keep His statutes and His ordinances and follow Him in faith. And that yoke that you mentioned, being light. It's, you know, once we start walking and looking to Him and not kicking dust or, you know, just being, you know, just I guess complaining like, oh well, there's no time to do some studies, or there's no, you know what I mean. Once we start complaining, then
Yeah.
it doesn't go well with the Father, you know. And so, thank you. That was very beautiful.
Yeah.
Praise Yah. Praise Yah. Anything else that anyone would like to point out before we move forward? Okay. We can continue on with. Sorry, I lost my place. The next section of Genesis. I'm sorry, Exodus. Is any volunteers? And it would be Exodus starting verses 15 all the way down to 22.
I'll read, Sister Letty.
Okay, thank you.
Get my flashlight going. Okay. Then the sovereign of Mizraim spoke to the Hebrew midwives, of whom the name of one was Shiphrah and the name of the other Puah. And he said, when you deliver the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stools, if it is a son, then you shall put him to death. But if it is a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared Elohim and did not do as the sovereign of Mizraim commanded them, and kept the male children alive. So the sovereign of Mizraim called the midwives and said to them, why have you done this and kept the male children alive? And the midwives said to Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not like the Mizraim women, for they are lively and give birth before the midwives come to them. So Elohim was good to the midwives, and the people increased and became very numerous. And it came to be, because the midwives feared Elohim, that he provided households for them. And Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, throw every son who is born into the river, and keep alive every daughter. You know, this passage always intrigues me for many reasons, but two things I'll pull out is we have an instance here where they actually didn't tell the truth when questioned. They actually lied, but it was out of their fear of, reverence for Yahuwah. Like they feared him more than man, even though that man was, the head person talking to them, ruler over the whole nation within they lived. But they wanted to do what was right. And so you could even say, they used some wisdom in how they gave the report to him because, they might not have lasted that, if they would have been like, nah, we were disobeying you and not doing what you asked. And then we even see in verse 20 that that Elohim was like Yah, you know, they had favor with Yah for what they did. It reads in verse 20, so Elohim was good to the midwives, and then we see that the people increased and became very numerous. And it always reminds me of King Herod as well, because he also had that same, you know, tactic, if you will, to try to, you know, keep the chosen one from coming. Like, you know, like he thought that would, you know, be a good plan. Like, oh, you know, it's going to be a boy coming, you know, so they'll get rid of all the boys. And in this case, you know, Pharaoh didn't necessarily know Moses was coming or who he was and all of that, but he was just trying to, you know, decrease their numbers by any means necessary. And so, you know, imagine if that were to happen today in our times. Like, that's like major genocide right here, you know. But just anyone who has a son born, throw them in the river. I mean, wow, you know, and I have a son, so I couldn't imagine. So that's all I have that I'll share for now.
No, that's beautiful, sister, and how these midwives they feared Elohim, and I just kind of wanted to just read a cross-reference on the fear that these women had for Elohim. On Genesis, excuse me, it's on Matthew 10:28, and it says, "And fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell." You know, and these ladies or these midwives, they had an understanding, a deep understanding, and in a respect, a reverence for Heavenly Father. Praise Yah.
Praise Yah. Yep. Sister Linda?
Yes, absolutely. You ladies are really hitting on some very, very key factors right now. And I'll tell you, I'm sitting over here with the, you know, following along with what you're saying and everything. And this really epitomizes, it really it demonstrates a real fear that can be prevalent when Yasharal really rises up, when Israel really rises up. And we see the desperation. We see the desperation in the leaders of Pharaoh and the desperation of Herod, of killing, massacring babies, innocent, all of these innocent children out of fear that there might be one designated one in the midst. Do you follow what I'm saying? And with Pharaoh, they saw how fruitful they were, how spirited they were, how mighty they were, how they were superior in excellence and in might and everything to all that was around them. These were things that were quite recognizable. And because of the fear they had, and I think this same type of fear is prevalent today. And I think it's something that is just a lot more subtle, but I think it is one of the reasons why we've had to suffer so much. And it seems like there's such an onslaught, always an onslaught against the young male. And I think it has a lot to do with this of trying to always suppress the seed. I think that a lot of people are more aware of who we are than we are ourselves, and that they'd like to keep it that way forever, you know. And I think they've done a pretty good job up to this point, but the Father has an appointed time for everything, and this just happens to be the appointed time that He's manifesting His presence and demonstrating His power to raise up His people for the purpose, the sole purpose of exactly what He raised us up from the beginning, when we heard our cry, when we were so suppressed. That is to worship Him. That is to esteem Him, to give Him the glory that is due unto His name. And he's gonna do it. And if Yah be for us, who can be against us? We know that all things, this is my favorite scripture. We know that all things work together for good for them that love Yah and are called according to his purpose. But we have some perfect women role models today that we have to be courageous. We can't be passive and afraid. We have to realize that this is a spiritual battle, and we have to go forth in the might that the Father is preparing us for in our Bible studies and everything, and challenge the adversary in the spirit, and keep him in subjection where he belongs, so that our people can wake up. The children of Yasharal, the children of Israel, can wake up and serve our Father as we ought. Praise Yah.
Yes, praise Yah. So much truth, sister. So much truth. Let's fear Him, fear the Most High, respect Him, and not fear man, and not allow the adversary, the enemy, to think that he's mightier than the Heavenly Father. He's not. We have Yahuwah's protection over us, and just like you said, we are out to teach. And I can see that with the young men, how they're being attacked heavily, with perversion and all sorts of things. Praise Yah. Thank you.
Yes.
Is there anything else on these verses that we just read, sisters, that you guys would like to point something out? I wanted to, something that was really, really beautiful and amazing is the names of these ladies, of these midwives. I did a little bit of research on these names. The first one is Shipra. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And Shipra, both of these ladies are Israelites. Shipra comes from H8235, and the root is H8231. Sorry. And her name means brightness and garnish. And then the name of Hua, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, it's glitter or brilliancy. So to me, like, one thing that I was like very impressed with is that, Yahuwah garnished the sky with bright stars that glitter. And so it's just amazing because these ladies, their names represent that, brightness, like the brightness of the stars, and glitter, and so it's amazing. And then I was it took me to Daniel 12, chapter 12, verse 3, and it says, and this again goes back to the names of these midwives. It says, and they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. So even their names represent something so, so strong and so beautiful and so bright, and then kind of goes along with what they do. They follow Yahuwah, they follow Him. They're not afraid of man because they know His protection is over them. And so I just wanted to show that because I felt like it was just beautiful, like what their names represented.
That is beautiful, because it's the very thing that the enemy was trying to thwart or stop or hinder, and that was the promise you read earlier in Genesis, that his seed will multiply like the stars in the sky. And here they are, kind of being used in that way. And I never knew that they were Israelites, because when I look at verse 19, I thought the way I've always had thought it meant was like, you know, like he was explaining to the Pharaoh, like, or the Hebrew women aren't like our women, or, you know, that's kind of how I was interpreting it. But now that you brought that out, it gives me a new perspective. And Sister Linda has a comment.
Yes, Father. Yes, something that I wanted to mention right there. With the Hebrew Israelite midwives, that was really beautiful. What Leticia just brought out about those two. It's going to be very interesting. It's interesting how they did keep the courage and everything that is necessary. Perfect examples of courage and everything. I wanted to say something else, but I lost my train of thought. But I think I'm tired. But I'm getting my strength back. My thought just completely left. Hopefully it'll come back. If it does, I'll share it.
We want to know, sister. Okay. Okay. So we can go ahead and move forward, and we can jump into now reading chapter 2 on same Exodus chapter 2. And here, go ahead, Sister Linda.
Oh, yes, I got it. Yeah, I came back. You know what I find amazing about this first chapter, when they're talking about how Pharaoh, how fear caused them to think that the Hebrews were growing up, they were getting so mighty that they would turn against them for someone else. That wasn't even a thought in their mind. All they wanted to be was free. They wanted to be free, and they wanted to worship as a righteous righteous people, and most of them anyway. But that wasn't a thought in their mind to turn against them. And do you know what I mean? And what? But that fear caused them to think that because they weren't treating them right, that this would be an automatic thing that they would do, that they would want to do, and it wasn't even a part of the program. That wasn't even the reason for the deliverance. The reason for the deliverance was so that they could be free from the bondage and to worship Yah, not to go to war against them or join in with others to try to harm any of them. Isn't that something?
And it's incredible you say that, because, you know, it's like that's the tactic that the enemy uses on all of us.
Yes.
Even now, when we watch the news, and it's like that fear that they pump into us with these, you know, with just recently with coronavirus, you know, and I mean, it's out there, you know, I know it's happening, but it's like this fear of on the public, you know, and I don't know, it's just interesting, like how the news uses that tactic of fear,
Absolutely.
you know, and I don't know, I mean, I can go on with the subject, but I'm not going to. I'm gonna probably hold back on this, but yeah, that's what the enemy uses on us. And
Amen. It's like the fear can fuel evil intent, you know, and they're unfounded fears, like Sister Linda's pulling out, but yet it's what motivates them to do something as outrageous as throw all the baby boys in the river, because they didn't want them to raise up to overtake them.
amen. Okay. Thank you, sisters. So we can move forward to chapter 2, and if I can get a volunteer to read the first verses, verse 1 to 4.
I can volunteer.
Okay. Who was that?
I also wanted to, Ms. Couture, can you hear me?
Oh, Ms. Keturah, yes, go ahead.
Also, I just wanted to, what Sister Linda was saying about how they were afraid of them doing something. It reminded me of a verse I read in Proverbs recently. Proverbs 28, verse 1. It says, the wicked flee when no one is chasing them, but the righteous are bold as a lion. And I always think about that. Like, you ever been talking to someone and they're like, oh, I was thinking about this. I was thinking it's like in their minds there's no peace because it's constantly somebody's thinking something about them, or it's like everything is like a type of paranoia. And yeah, man, I'm all smiles because he wants to give us so much peace. It says that he wants to give us a peace that passes no understanding. And I get it because I remember having that type of fear in my mind, like everybody's out to get me, everybody's trying to come against me. But like, yeah, like to be delivered from that and to be free in your mind and in your thought is it's a gift, such a gift. But
Amen, sister. Yes.
Exodus 2, verse 1, you said?
Yeah, verse 1 all the way to 4. What's his 4 verses? Yes.
And the man of the house of Levi went and married. Is that right? Exodus 2? No, right?
No, yeah, you're correct, sister.
Yeah, okay.
Exodus 2.
Okay, and it says, and a man of the house of Levi went and married a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bore a son, and she saw that he was a lovely child, and she hid him 3 months. And when she could hide him no longer, she took an ark of wicker for him and coated it with tar and pitch and put the child in it and laid it in the reeds by the edge of the river. And his sister stood at a distance to know what would be done to him. I don't see anything there, but I'll come back if I do see something.
Okay. Thank you for reading. Sister Linda, I see. Did you want to make a comment?
I didn't even realize my hand was up. But pertaining to what Sis Katura was saying before she started reading, that is so absolutely true. I was over here laughing because that is so true. She gave a perfect summary of that type of fear that they were feeling to cause them to do these type of horrific things against us. It's terrible. But since you got me on the line, you want me to share a little bit from the first 4 first verses?
Yes, of course. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, we know they don't mention the names yet, but we know that we will find out that the wife is Yochebed, and the daughter. And okay, let's just stop right there. But now the thing about this, and just to keep things in its context, Jochebed, the way they spell her name here is not how it would be spelled in Hebrew. In the Hebrew language, it would be Jochebed. She's one of the first people that were named after Yah. And her name means glory of Yah, or Yah's glory. Praise Yah. And I find that's so ironic in doing my research on that, because that's exactly what the Father did. He manifested his glory to her son, to Moses, and to Aaron, and to Miriam, to all 3 of her children. Her name means glory of Yah, and she and the Father manifest. But at the same time, for her to be named Yah's glory tells me that the Israel people, from my research that I was doing on her name, that they had already we don't want to speculate and everything, but somebody knew about Yah's glory to name her Yah's glory. And we know to see in the Hebrew, there's no J's or things like that. So, things are switched around. But originally her name was Jochebed. And another thing that I found out, and I'm going to stop at this, is that she was the daughter of Levi. Now, I'm not getting into the genealogy because we're told not to get into endless genealogies and all of this. But Jochebed was his daughter that he had after they went to Egypt. And so I'm trying to see this timeline, but I'm not going to hold it up. I'm going to research it a little further, because we know that they were there for 430 years, right? And we know that she's having Moses here. She's getting ready to have Moses, Masha here. And at the same time, we know that at 80 years old is when he delivers Egypt. So we're figuring there's like a 320-year period right there. But I don't understand how she could still be living. But I'm not going to get into that right now. That's for further research. The reason that just so they'll have nobody confused. This is what I'm trying to say. Levi is one of the sons that went into Egypt with the rest of the brothers. He was one of the brothers that sold Joseph into slavery, right? So he lives his life in Egypt. After Joseph dies, and Joseph dies when he's about 137 years old or whatever. So the rest of the brothers, okay, we figure all the brothers around that amount of time. Somewhere along in that time period, he has a daughter. Levi has a daughter, which is Jochebed. But then she's the mother of Moses. She's the mother of who's going to deliver them during that 400 period. Do you see what I'm saying? It seems like maybe there's a couple of missing generations or something somewhere along the line, unless another Levi came along. Maybe this wasn't the Levi. Maybe this wasn't the first Levi. Maybe this was another Levi later on. But according to the genealogy, it shows that this is the Levi, Joseph's brother.
So
if that's the case, she must have had him. She must have been a couple 100 years old.
Let me see. So it seems like, okay, so we have Levi, which is one of the 12 tribes, son of Leah, and then a man of the house of Levi took to wife the daughter of Levi, which would be Jochebed.
Right.
And so this man who took to wife Jochebed, his name is
Amram. He was okay. So now she was his aunt.
Yes.
She was his aunt and also his wife. She married her brother's son.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? She married the man was the house of Levi, but it was her brother's son.
Right.
Her nephew?
Amram, do you want to go to the genealogy? I can get the genealogy up here for you real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, sister.
Okay, let me see, where's the genealogy at? Because I looked at it not too long ago. Let me see. I don't want to hold you up. I'll come right back to it. Okay, you can just go ahead and I'll give it to you in a few minutes.
Okay, sister.
Let's do my notes.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. Where is it?
Let us know when you're ready. Okay, Sister Linda?
Okay, I certainly will. Let me get it real quick.
Okay.
Numbers.
I'll make a quick comment about that same passage. I thought Moses' mom had a lot of courage to hide him and then put him in the basket. And I liken her courage to the midwives, because like they had the courage to keep delivering the babies and not kill them. And Moses' mom was like, I don't know what that was like to try to hide him, but it says she hid him for 3 months. And then when she couldn't hide him any longer, that's when, she put him in the wicker. And that took a lot of faith to, but it seems like she was, I don't want to go ahead, but it seems like she was almost hoping someone in Pharaoh's house would notice him, the way she sent her daughter to look after the basket and everything. So that's all I wanted to pull out.
No, I definitely agree with you, sister. I think, she definitely exhibited a lot of courage and her faith, because this is her son, and to have put him in a basket, and actually, on top of her courage, because she was definitely very courageous to have done this, but also her faith, because you have to have faith to know that your son is going to be okay. She was holding, because it says in verse 2, and the woman conceived and bare a son, and when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him for 3 months. So she knew there was something very special. Aside from being her son, she saw something in him. And but also she was a smart woman, very smart. I was looking into the bulrushes, what that was. I mean, and these are stalks that rise to the height of 6 to 7 cubits above water. And I didn't know what a cubit was, so I had to look into that. And the cubit is like the length of the elbow all the way to the length of your middle finger. So it's like 6 of that, stacked up, these stalks. And she didn't just put, she created this vessel, per se, this ark to put her son in, and she didn't just place him in the water and let the stream take him away. She put him, it says that she laid him in the flags by the river brink. So she didn't carelessly just say, okay, I'm going to let the water take you. She put him on very thoughtful, in a way. She put him close to the river bank or the river brink, so that he would be safe. And so she can see how intelligent was this woman, as well as her faith and her courage. So, sorry, I just wanted to also add to what you had said, because, yeah, she definitely has a lot of good qualities to, as an example for us to follow. Sister Linda, I see your hand raised.
Yes, I found it. I found the genealogy. You're absolutely right about Yochebed. She definitely showed that faith, and she was determined to save her child. That's a good thing. I just want you to show the genealogy is of Levi. It's found First Chronicles, the 6th chapter.
Chronicles, I'm sorry, chapter 1, sister?
The 6th chapter, First Chronicles, the 6th chapter.
Okay.
But Chronicles is First Chronicles, the second, but First Chronicles.
Thank you.
I just want to show how quick this happened within the genealogy. The first 3 verses. It says the sons of Levi. Now we know that this is the brother we're talking about. The sons of Levi were Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. And the sons of Kohath were Amram, which is the father of Moses. You see? And then in the 3rd verse it says, and the children of Amram was Aaron, Moses, and Miriam. So so now we know that by the time Moses comes on the scene and Aaron and Miriam, we know that the 400 years is, like almost coming to ending up for them to be delivered. We know that because we know specifically that it was, I think it's specifically 430 years. But you see, it's just a few generations here. Levi goes into Egypt with Jacob and all of them while Joseph is still alive to preserve them. Okay, so now while Levi is in Egypt, he has Jochebed. I found that scripture too. It tells us that he had Jochebed while he was in Egypt. So she's a little younger than than I suppose the boys. They went with them too, because she's the only one that specified that was born in Egypt. But then the sons out of Levi's 3 sons, the middle one, Kohath, has Amram, which is Moses' father. So this is like a period, only 3 generations that all of this 400 years took place. Am I right? Do you see what I'm saying? You would think it would be a few more generations than that, right?
But Sister Linda,
especially with Yochebed, because if Yochebed is Levi's daughter, and she's also the mother of Moses, we know that this takes place during a period of like 300 and something years. So, I think the women were having babies a lot longer. Well, we know that like Sarah, 90, and I think there may have been a few more cases where they don't specify exactly how old they were. But maybe someone can shed some light on this, because it really kind of has me kind of like puzzled, because it seemed like she would have been too old by the time it came time for Moses' generation. If she was born in Egypt for Levi's generation. If anybody has any type of insight on that, or even in the future, when we come back next week, can you share it with me, please?
Sister Katora has a comment, and then when Sister Katora is done, Sister Unique has her hand up. Go ahead, Sister Katora.
Sister Linda, do you think that, were you saying that, because I know they were living a lot longer back then, so even if you take the first generation, say they lived like 150 or so years, which is not unreasonable, because even now, and we're so far down the line, you see our generations living up to 100. So 150 to 200 years at that time is not really, it's not really something significant. So that would be only 2 generations if you're talking about, well, it would be about right if it's a 400-year time frame, if they're living like 150 to 200 years. What do you think?
Yeah,
also, I wanted to just, sorry, go ahead, Joan.
No, I was going to say that's a great point, because didn't Moses live like, wasn't he like one of those 300-year-old individuals?
Right, the time exactly. It was so long. I'm going to mute myself, but I just wanted to mention one other thing. And I'm sorry I didn't sign in from my account where I could raise my hand. I signed in from Jazz, so forgive me if this is disorderly. But the other thing I wanted to mention, I thought it was a good point that Letty brought up with her placing the baby in the bulrushes, because you see the movies and she's just kind of like singing and pushing him down the river. That's not really like reasonable when you think about a mother trying to save her child. But when you read it, it says she placed him by the riverside in the bulrushes. And like Letty said, that those things were big. So you put something in there, it's not really moving too much. It's going to stay there. And then it also makes sense that the daughter would be standing like far back watching something that's kind of stationary, not something that's just like shooting down a river. And then when you look at the princess or Pharaoh's daughter that came down, it says that when she was walking, she noticed it by the riverside. So it never said it was like going down the river and she just happened to glance at it. It's like, I believe it's more like what Letty was saying. It was carefully placed. It was staying there because she was already hiding him for months. So it would make sense to go in with that same mindset. Like, I still want to hide my baby. You don't just go from I want to hide him to I want to push him down the river. So, yeah, that's the last thing I wanted to say.
Yes, definitely. Praise Yah, sister. I think we might have lost you.
No,
did you have?
No, she was
okay.
done. She said she was done.
Oh, okay.
Sister Unique.
Oh, I just wanted to point out to Sister Linda in Exodus 6. Let verse 16, it shows that so you have Levi, which had the 3 sons, and then his son Kohath had Amram, and Kohath is Jochebed's sister. So Levi is Jochebed's let's see. So it'd be Levi is the father, then the son is Kohath, and then Kohath and Jochebed are brothers and brother and sister. So it's not directly to Levi. Levi's son is in between. You seen what I'm saying?
So you have Levi, the father, his son.
Then
Son is the one.
The son is the brother of Moses' mother. That's what it's saying in Exodus 6, verse 16 to verse 20. Because it said, verse 20 says, Amram took him Jochebed, his father's sister, to wife, and she bore Aaron, Moses, and Miriam, So she's not Levi's sister. She's Levi's sister. If you get, that's what it's saying.
I think you're unique. This is a
Thank
good one, Sister Linda. Got me puzzled. Okay, thank you, Sister.
Ooh. Yeah. Yes, I was looking at all of that. I looked at all of that when I was doing my research and everything also. So the way it appears to be now, we know that Levi is Jochebed's father. He had Jochebed when he was in Egypt. But yes, what happened was Jochebed married Kohath, her brother's son. So not only was she his wife, but she was his aunt also. Amram is Kohath's son, and that's Moses' father. That's who she married. So it's real close knit, and it was lawful back in those days before the law and everything. They could do that. So it wasn't that. So we're not dwelling on that. It's just the close how, even with the 137 years, I took all that into consideration also. But the main thing that I just can't understand is how she was Levi's daughter, and this whole bondage, enslavement encompassed a 400-year period. She went down to Egypt, a 400 and something year period, and had the deliverer, Moses. Do you follow what I'm saying? It seemed like it's quite a span of time there. But we do know that they were living long and everything. Each generation, it specifies 130 years, 133, 100. And so obviously that's just the way it went. But I'll tell you something, it didn't take long, did it? Just 3 generations. Levi, then his son, and then his son's son. It was time for the deliverer to come along.
Amen, Sister. And that's something I'm going to research myself and look a little bit more deeper into it, because I still I'm a little bit unclear on the depth of the time.
Right.
But it's, like Sister Katora said, they did live longer, 130 years, and then like Sister Unique was mentioning, the family, the dynamics of
yes, and the girls, they gave very good explanations and everything. I think Sis Katora, I thank you and Sis Unique for what you shared with me and everything. So obviously that's just what happened, because we know the genealogy is correct.
Right.
It's just that I'm surprised. It just truly surprised me that it only took these few generations for this whole thing, and it encompassed the whole thing, Praise Yah.
Can I say one other thing?
Yes, go ahead, Sister.
It's just that, like, I feel like the Ruach is pointing this out for a specific reason. about the short time span that it took for the deliverer to come. And I'm thinking about this for us. Like, look at how fast these days are moving. Look at how fast time is moving. It's like he's on his way. You know, he's on his way, and that puts us. It should put us in a mindset that there's no time to waste. Our time is for him, and it's for helping the people around us. So I just wanted to really emphasize on that, because while we're studying, we should always be looking like, how can we apply this today? Like, how can I live this tomorrow? And I just think God is trying to show us, like, there's no time to waste. He's coming, and it's very soon.
Amen. We need to be a watchman or watchwoman.
Yeah, right.
You know, we should be a watchman of his laws, of his, you know, just be continually like praising him and thanking him, and just, you know, keep his commandments, and, you know, thank him for Yahusha, his son, our Messiah, who has delivered us from all our sin when we put our faith in him, you know, so praise him. And yes, we always have to be watching and always be in guard, and, you know, reading his word, and, you know, because the enemy, he's lurking, you know, he's watching, and he's ready to attack. He's ready, you know, and he's subtle. So we have to be ready, because the times, like you said, like the topic, you know, the time's going quite fast, you know, and so yes, definitely.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely no time for games.
I think just one thing that just really quickly before we move forward, I was just looking into one thing that stood out for me is the word ark in chapter 2, verse 3, ark, because it just kind of reminded me of, you know, Noah's ark, and it kind of reminded me of, you know, Noah just being in the ark, in the waters during that flood, you know, and then we have Moses in the vessel in that ark, you know, his mom created for him in the waters. And then I just kind of wanted to like tie that with our Heavenly Father, with our Messiah, Yahusha, you know, how Yahusha drew us out of the waters, you know, Yahuwah, he drew not Moses, I'm sorry, I'm getting confused here. He drew yes, he did. He softened the hearts of the daughter of the Pharaoh to draw him out of the water. He saved them. And then we have Yahusha drawing us out of the water, but the waters of lies, you know, the waters of just everything that, you know, just these religions, these things that we're being taught, like he's drawing us out of that, you know, he's giving us clarity, and he's giving us his understanding, you know, his word, you know, to know how can we distinguish from truth and from lies. So he's drawing us out. And so I just wanted to, I don't know, I thought that was kind of cool. So I just wanted to share that with you ladies. Okay. And okay, we can move forward. Can I get someone to read the next? Okay, go ahead.
Usually in scripture, the water signifies people. So that is very significant about him drawing us out of the water, because he pulled us out and he set us apart. So that's a very good point that you're bringing out.
Praise Yah. Amen, sister. That's beautiful. Thank you. Sister June, did you want to?
No, I'm good. I might show something later. I was trying to pull up. There's a really nice chart online that shows the ages of all the patriarchs, and it's kind of interesting, you know, because we can't really relate to someone living that long these days. But if I find it, I will raise my hand. Like
okay, thanks. I like that. That's right. Thank you. Okay. All right. So yes, if I can have someone read the next verses, starting chapter 2 in Exodus, starting in verse 5, all the way down to 10. Sister Linda, did you want to read the next verses?
Yes, sure. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children. Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." And the maid went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, "Take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages." And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses, and she said, "Because I drew him out of the water." Wow. Wow, isn't this something? Such a sad story. Now, I'm wondering if maybe the daughter of Pharaoh, if she came down to wash at that particular place every day. Obviously, where the ark was placed with the child, it was right there where she could see it. It was right there in her presence. Beautiful little baby. When she opened up the ark, she saw the beautiful little baby, and she had compassion on him. So, I think they might have known that she was pretty nice. You think they might have planned this whole thing? I mean, we don't want to speculate, but it sure kind of seems like the daughter Miriam, she's standing right there waiting to see the what's going to become of him. She didn't leave him there by himself. Had to have a hope, because of the fact that this is where Pharaoh, this was like going right into the enemy's territory. But Hebrews 11:23, it says, by faith Moses, when he was hid 3 months of his parents, because they saw he was a proper child, and they were not afraid of the king's commandments. All of this was done by faith. And that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. All praise be to your name, Father. She might not have known exactly what she was doing, but it sure turned out for her good, didn't it? Even to the point, because the Father had a call on Moses. Matter of fact, with Jochebed, the Father had a call on all 3 of her children's lives. On Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. Miriam is a prophetess. And all the women, they followed her. And Jochebed was quite a female. Her vision, she's envisioned that her child would somehow be saved, and this was all done. Hebrews tells us that they moved by faith. That not only Jochebed, but her husband Amram, also the parents, that they moved by faith, and they hid him because they saw that he was a proper child. Now, this proper child, I think some way in those days, because of their discernment and being high in Ruach, I think they were able to see when the Father had a particular call. We can do that now. You can see when the Father sometimes has a special call on certain individuals. Sometimes you may have children, you may see something special about one of them or all of them, and you know that the Father has his hands on them. I think we know that he was a pretty child, but he was also, I think it had a lot to do with the spirit that was within him, that she knew that he was being used, he was going to be used by, maybe not to the magnitude, she probably didn't know what, but she knew that the Father had his hands on him. And they moved by faith and weren't afraid of what the king said. Now that in itself tells us that they were definitely moving by the Ruach, definitely moving by faith, because when the king gave a commandment, you either followed that commandment or, you could be, killed. And here they saw all the other children being killed and everything. So it tells me that they were really very, very faith-filled. And actually try to hide your child for 3 months. Babies, you know how babies cry? You can hear babies in your neighborhood crying sometimes. In the early, quiet morning, you can hear your next door neighbor's baby if you're living in close proximity to someone else. And so can you imagine what she had to go through, how peaceful the atmosphere had to be for her to keep the baby nurtured and catering to his every whim before, you know, we become masters as as parents. We know how to quiet our babies. We know what to do before they, you know, they start getting fretful or whatever. So she did a really, really good job to hide him for 3 months. I think that was an excellent thing, because they could really alarm up a house by then, you know.
No, I know. I remember my son was colicky, and nothing would calm him down. So he would cry and cry. You know, he had that stomach pain, and it was just hard when he was a newborn to keep him calm and to keep him, you know, to keep, because I you know, I would get stressed out. I'm like, because, you know, seeing your child cry and not knowing, you know. So yeah, you're right, to keep Moses as when he was a baby, to keep him in those 3 months, you know, quiet and calm. It was a difficult task. I mean, I'm just from my experience with my child. And you know that you brought up Miriam, and how, you know, again in verse 4 we see her, she stood far off, and then later on we see it says here, then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew woman, that she may nurse the child? So at first, it kind of was, I was wondering, like, for Miriam, like you said, that faith gave her that courage, because I was looking at this verse, and I could be wrong, and let me, you know, please correct me, anyone, you know, if I'm wrong, but in verse 7 it looks like his sister is referring to Moses' sister, which would be oh my goodness, Mir, why did I draw a blank? It would be his sister, but I wanted to also say, like, then if you continue on into verse 9, verse 8, and it says, and Pharaoh's daughter said to her. So we have we have the Pharaoh saying, yeah, go ahead, go and do that. And the maid went and called the child's mother. So I'm almost wondering if Miriam is, at this point, she is from afar, she comes to the Pharaoh's daughter and tells her this, which definitely takes a lot of courage. Or was she her maid already? Because it kind of, I don't know, it's kind of confusing. It sounds like she's her maid because of verse 8. And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go, and the maid went and called the child's mother. So I was kind of unclear on that, but if it is, if she was afar and she came to Pharaoh's daughter, definitely that faith gave her that courage, gave Miriam that courage to pursue her and talk to her, and in behalf of her, of her brother. So okay, we can continue on, and this is gonna we're gonna move forward now, and now talk about Miriam, who Miriam was, in the next verses, if time allows. And we can actually jump into Exodus, excuse me, Numbers 12, chapter 12, verses 1 through 15. So that would be Numbers chapter 12, verses 1 through 15. It's actually going to be the whole chapter, sorry. Okay.
I wanted to point out one thing, if possible.
Okay.
How well can you hear me?
We could hear you.
Okay. From verses 9 and 10, I thought it was pretty amazing. We're talking about the faith of Jochebed. I thought it was pretty amazing how Yah just turned the situation completely around for her. She went from fearing for her child's life, and then I can't even imagine how hard it would be, like you guys said, to hide a newborn for 3 months. So the struggle there in itself. And then that's not enough. Now you got to send him away. Like, yeah, like he took that situation, and then not only do you get your baby back, but you get to be paid to keep and protect your own baby. What kind of Yah is that? That is amazing to me. That is mind-blowing. But that's the Yah we serve. And when you think about stories like this, they become your reality. It's like, man, yeah, what will I not do for you? Because what will you not do for me? That is amazing. I'm sorry.
No, and it's, and that kind of you're right. Like, it's amazing that he is in control. Again, he is in control, and that to me is something that I praise him for, because if we find ourselves in situations or in what's it called, in trouble, and we can depend on him, we can look to him, and we can lean on him, and he's gonna take us out of that situation, because he's in control. We are his daughters, and because we're his daughters, and we follow him, we follow an Elohim, Yahuah, that is he's the maker of the heavens and the earth, and so, and and I wanted to also point out, since we're still in this section here, is the compassion that the Hebrew woman had for Moses. It almost makes me think, like, did Yahuah soften her heart for this boy? Because it doesn't say much about who this Pharaoh's daughter was, who she was, her her ways, but she's growing up in this household, with all these different gods and her father and all, what I mean? Just differently. So I'm almost wondering if Yahuah just softened her heart for Moses. I do see that in Genesis 26, and this is a story when we have when Elohim came to Abimelech. This is when Sarah and Abraham. This is when Abraham said he kind of lied or twisted it. Well, he halfly lied, I guess, or he didn't tell the full truth, and said, "This is my sister," and he forgot to mention that Sarah was his wife. So here we have Abimelech, Yahuah come to Abimelech in a dream, and pretty much like taking control, almost like not necessarily softening his heart, but it's letting him know, like, this is a woman's, this is the wife of a man. And so I don't know, it just kind of reminded me of that. Go ahead, Sister Andrew.
I think that was an excellent pull out, that she got her baby back. Like, in faith, she put the baby in the water or wherever in faith she hid the baby, and then Yah returned the baby to her, and she got to continue being a mom. And like you were just saying, Letty, it's like, what was going on in the Pharaoh daughter's mind, because she had to know that her dad was killing all these sons, and perhaps, and this is speculation, it's not in the scripture, so we don't know about this, but if she bathes in the water, I don't know, was it ever in her eyesight that she see some babies thrown in the water where she near where she bathed? And then maybe compassion just arrested her heart because she probably realized there's a mom here trying to save. She probably recognized it was a Hebrew baby, right? And then that's it. But what blows my mind is that her dad permits it. unless her dad just didn't know about it. Like her dad actually allows her to, take in, baby Moses. And I don't know if she had any other children. Did she? I don't, because if she didn't, that could be another motivating factor for her to want to, hey, nurse this child, bring him back and he'll be mine, type situation. But I was going to propose, I know that it's not a lot of text for the two women and we were doing them together, but I was going to propose we do a part 2 since it's
No,
3 minutes.
Yeah, 3 minutes. No, I was actually, yeah, I agree with you. I'm in accordance. I think Miriam is someone that has a lot of qualities, again, that I think we need to take our time and kind of study them and study her, give her time. So, yeah, definitely we can hold off on reading on Miriam until next Friday. And it would be part 2. Yeah, it makes sense.
This is fascinating.
Yeah, she's actually also, the daughter, Pharaoh's daughter. She's in a way risking her life too, I would think, to take in her, a Hebrew or a Israelite baby, or, it's interesting. Okay, sisters. So before we end the study, is there anything any of you would like to add or comments on what we just read or we discussed? Okay, well, praise Yah, above all, for the study. And I think, like, one thing just to remember is, like, I don't know, I guess, like, this is something that is just, for me, it's like his Yahuah, who he is and how he is so amazing, and he's in control, and he is, and how you can see his hand in the lives of these women, in the lives of, just the seed that he's carrying through eventually, our Messiah. So I just wanted to, I guess, give reverence and praise to the Heavenly Father for what he's doing, and also what he's doing in our lives. Again, we sometimes go through just, instances or situations where we're just not feeling the greatest, but knowing that even when we don't feel the greatest, he's watching us, he is protecting us. And that's just a reminder, hopefully, for the week to come, is to always lean on him and to, like, our own understanding, and just know that he is in control. He's almighty, he's the creator, again, like, of the heavens and the earth, and he created us all and said it was good. Praise him. I love him. I love you too, sister. So, okay. So this is going to conclude part 1 of Jochebed and Miriam. And next Friday, we will continue, or we're going to resume with Miriam. Right.
Shalom, Akuti, and Brohim. Thank you so much for viewing this video. We hope it was helpful to your walk in the truth. Remember to always search the scriptures on your own, to study Abba's word and show yourself approved, according to 2 Timothy 2:15. We invite you to study with us. To join us in a live study, just go to our website at assemblyofyahuah.com and click the Join Us tab. We have something available Wednesday through Saturday of every week. If you've been Baruch or blessed by this video today or any other study, we encourage you to go to the Giving tab on our website. Our elders all have their own ways of income, so none of the giving or proceeds go to them. Instead, it goes to biblical assembly needs. We also encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you don't miss any new videos. We sincerely pray that Abba continues to direct your path as you acknowledge him in all your ways. Much avaha
and again, Shalom.